There will be a moment in your life with no warning signs at all. Not a lightning strike out of a clear sky. Not a sharp pain intense enough to give you a clue. Just a completely ordinary second, so ordinary you will not realize it is your last. Your heart beats one more time. Your lungs take one final breath. Your eyes close. And everything ends. No announcement, no countdown, no time to brace yourself. In a moment shorter than a blink, your entire life, the years of effort, the goals you chased, the worries, the ambitions, the things you called the most important, suddenly becomes absolutely irrelevant. Not because it never mattered, but because from that second on, it no longer belongs to you. Picture it slowly. Your phone still has battery. The work you were doing is still unfinished. Your loved ones are still laughing somewhere. The world does not stop to mourn you, but you have left that world forever. You cannot go back to send one more message. You cannot apologize to someone you hurt. You cannot bow down and pray one more time. You cannot say, just give me a little more time. And that inability to return is what makes this moment truly terrifying. Welcome to Prophetic History Explained, where we do not tell stories for entertainment, but to face truths people often try to avoid. Truths that make the heart tremble, and yet those same truths can completely change the way you live if you are brave enough to listen. Death, according to the Quran, is not an accident. It is not something that might happen. It is an appointment already set. From the day you were born, your name was written. That moment was decided. Every breath you take does not only keep you alive, it quietly moves you closer to the moment you cannot escape. Every sunrise you witness is not just a new day, it is one more step toward your own grave. Allah makes it clear this worldly life is temporary, a test, a mirage, a brief enjoyment. And yet how many of us live like we will never die? We build our entire identity around our job, our money, our social image, other people's approval. We delay returning to Allah. We delay repentance. We delay prayer because deep down we believe we still have time. But death does not run on your schedule. It does not wait until you are ready. It does not care how many plans you still have. It does not negotiate. When the moment arrives, everything you thought you owned, every outfit, every possession, every account, every title, is stripped away in a single second. Nothing is allowed to go with you. The only thing left is the real you, your faith, what you did when nobody was watching. The words you spoke, the prayers you skipped, the chances to do good that you kept postponing. Death does not create a new truth. It exposes the truth that was always there. And that is what makes that moment the most honest moment of a human life. No more performing. No more self-deception. No more blaming circumstances. No more using busyness as an excuse. You will know exactly how you lived, what you truly believed, whether you lived in obedience or in denial. Ask yourself right now, while you are still breathing, while your heart is still beating, if that moment came tonight, what would you carry into the next world? Peace or panic? Relief or regret you can never repair? If these questions make you uncomfortable, then you might be hearing exactly what you need to hear. And if you want to go deeper, to understand what happens immediately after that final second, what the soul faces, and why every moment you are living right now matters so much, stay with us. Before we move into the next part of the journey, subscribe to Prophetic History Explained to support and walk with us. Every subscription helps us keep bringing content that is deep, honest, and capable of changing the way you see life before it is too late. When the final moment of the body closes, another reality begins to open. Not with noise, not with trumpets, no one around you even notices. But for the soul, it is the heaviest second of the entire journey of existence. Because for the first time, the soul must leave its familiar shelter, the body, and face directly what it heard about its entire life. but never fully took in with complete certainty. The taking of the soul is not random. It does not happen in chaos. It happens with precision, with order, and it carries a clear imprint of how a person lived. That moment does not create a new destiny. It activates the destiny that was already formed. For the soul of someone who lived with faith, someone who remembered Allah in loneliness, in nights no one witnessed, in difficult choices where they still chose what was right, the departure feels different. Not because they had no fear, but because they prepared for this moment their whole life without realizing it. The soul is called out with gentleness, with words that do not threaten but invite. This is not a call of ending, it is a call of return. That soul leaves not in panic but in release, because it understands the body was only a temporary residence. What truly belonged to it was stored somewhere else, in prayer and self-control when temptation was strong, in mercy toward the vulnerable, in good deeds done with no need for anyone to know. For that soul, leaving feels like setting down a weight it carried too long and stepping into a reality it trusted without ever seeing. But not every soul leaves like that. For souls that lived in neglect, always delaying their return to Allah, always soothing themselves with later, this moment becomes a violent shock. The soul realizes it misjudged everything. The body that once served pleasure, display, and distraction becomes what the soul clings to desperately, because it knows leaving now means there is no more chance to fix anything. The fear is no longer vague. It is not fear of physical pain. It is fear of truth being exposed. Every excuse you told yourself dissolves. No more busyness to hide behind. No more entertainment to silence the emptiness. No one left to blame. The soul understands with painful clarity that what is coming is not injustice. It is the direct result of what it chose while it still had time. That is why the moment of the soul's departure becomes the clearest line between two kinds of living. Not between rich and poor, not between famous and unknown, but between the one who lived knowing they would return, and the one who lived as if this world was the final stop. The terrifying part is that many people only realize they chose wrong when it is too late to choose again. In that moment, the soul is no longer measured by the image society once saw. No fame, no compliments, no admiration, only the naked reality of faith. And here, a deep truth is exposed. People do not die the way they talk. They die the way they lived. If faith was only talk, the soul will be empty. If worship was only a ritual shell, the soul will be lost. If repentance was always pushed to tomorrow, the soul will shake when tomorrow never comes again. But if remembering Allah was truly a refuge, the soul will realize it is not stepping into something foreign. It is moving towards something more familiar than anything in the world. So the moment the soul is taken is not only the moment of death, it is the moment of absolute truth. The moment when there is no gap left between what you claim to believe and what you actually lived. No gray zone, no reasons, no excuses, only painful clarity or deep peace. And right there, every soul understands what very few people accept while alive. Death does not come to steal your life. It comes to show you how you truly lived. When the soul has left the body and the world behind begins to close, a deep paradox appears. You no longer belong to life, yet you are fully aware. You see your body lying there, still silent, without warmth. You see hands gently touching skin that is growing cold. You hear water being poured, cloth softly moving, the choking sobs of family. But even though you are present, you cannot intervene. No explanation, no nod, no look returned. The distance between you and the world is no longer space. It is power that has been permanently taken away. When the grave is sealed and the final footsteps fade, silence drops like a heavy weight. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of confrontation. Confrontation with yourself. No one to lean on, no one to answer for you, no advice coming from outside, only the soul and the reality it prepared for, or the reality it missed while it was alive. In that space, two angels appear. Their presence is unlike anything a human being ever experienced. No threats are needed, no forceful gestures. Their presence alone is enough to shatter whatever illusions remain. This is not a moment for guessing or debating. This is a moment of absolute truth. Questions are asked, short, clear, not academic, not demanding arguments. Who is your Lord? What path did you follow? Who is the one who guided you? In the world, these questions can be answered instantly. Even a child can memorize them. But in the grave, there is no room for memorization. No room for answers borrowed from the crowd. The response does not rise from the tongue. It rises from the years you lived when no one saw you. If Allah was truly your anchor, not only in hardship but in ease, your heart will recognize it before you even have time to think. If worship was a living connection rather than an empty routine, the answer will come without hesitation. Not because you remembered, but because you lived it. But if faith was pushed to the side, if prayer felt like a burden, if you knew what was right but kept choosing what was easy, that moment becomes total confusion. Not because you never heard the answers, but because your life never confirmed them. Your tongue trembles, your thoughts scatter, and a brutal truth appears. Knowledge cannot save a soul that never lived by that knowledge. As soon as the truth of your answer is revealed, the grave responds, not like an object, but like a space that reflects the inner life of a person. For a soul that lived with sincerity, the grave is no longer a cage. It expands. The air feels lighter. Light enters what you assumed would be pure darkness. A door is opened, allowing the soul to glimpse where it is headed. And in that moment, fear begins to fade, replaced by a waiting filled with hope. But for a soul that lived in neglect and self-deception, the grave becomes a tightening with no escape. Not because the grave is small, but because the heart was always narrow toward truth. The space closes in. Light dims. Another door opens, not to comfort, but to remind the soul of the consequences of choices already made. And for the first time, the soul understands that not every door opens as mercy. So the questioning in the grave is not just an interview. It is the most honest summary of an entire life. No edits, no additions, no resubmission. What you prioritized, what you dismissed, what you delayed, it all shows up in your answer or in your silence. The grave does not ask what you said about faith. It asks how you lived with that faith. And here, one unavoidable truth is carved into you. People are not tested by the questions in the grave. They are tested by the life that led them to those questions. After the grave is sealed and the questioning has passed, the soul enters a state most people rarely think about seriously while alive. It is no longer the world of action, and it is not yet the day of judgment. No chance to fix mistakes, but not the final outcome either. This is barzakh, an unseen boundary where the soul waits in full awareness. Barzakh is not sleep. It is not emptiness. It is not disappearance. The soul still knows who it is, how it lived, and what is coming. Only one thing is gone forever: the ability to change destiny through new actions. Every deed, every word, every intention has been locked. Now the soul can only feel the results of what it planted. Time there does not move by familiar sunrises and sunsets. There is no Monday or Saturday, no calendar, no clock. For some souls, the waiting passes lightly, almost like a brief moment. For other souls, every second stretches heavy, as if the waiting itself is punishment. The difference does not come from outside circumstances. It comes from the inner state the soul carried from the world. For a sincere soul, Barzakh is not a place of terror. It is a quiet space where fear settles and understanding becomes clearer than ever. The soul knows the journey is not finished, but it also knows it is moving in the right direction. Not because of blind confidence, but because it remembers the times it chose Allah over ego, chose what was right over what was easy. But for a soul that lived in neglect, barzakh becomes the place where every distraction it used to avoid truth disappears. No work to stay busy, no noise to fill the void, no pleasures to silence the inner voice. Only the naked awareness of what was missed. And that awareness makes barzakh feel heavy and tight, even though nothing physical has changed. The most frightening part of barzakh is not punishment, it is clarity. There the soul looks back on life with no more self-justification. The reasons that once sounded so reasonable now feel empty. The promise of "I will do it later" has nowhere left to go. And the soul understands with painful certainty that every moment you treated as not a big deal actually carried eternal weight. In barzakh, the soul also begins to sense its destination in advance. Not the full reality of paradise or hell, but the echo of what is ahead. For a believer, it is comfort, reassurance that sacrifices and quiet efforts were never wasted. For one who turned away from truth, it is constant unease, a fearful waiting with no way to calm it. So barzakh is not only waiting, it is the final school of awareness. The place where the soul learns what it often ignored in life. The world was never the destination. Everything you treated as certain is gone. And the only thing with real value is the connection between the soul and the one who created it. What makes barzakh unique is that the soul is not completely cut off from the world it left. It does not return, wander, or communicate the way people imagine, but it still perceives. It senses being remembered or being forgotten. It feels moments of comfort or stretches of cold emptiness, not through physical senses, but through a deeper, sharper awareness. In that waiting, the soul recognizes what very few people admit while alive. It was never death that changed everything. Truth was always there. People just refused to look at it. Barzakh does not create judgment. It pulls away the last veil of illusion. And in that long silence, the soul waits for the day all of humanity will be raised again. For the prepared, it is waiting with hope. For the unprepared, it is waiting with regret. But for everyone, barzakh is the irreversible reminder that worldly life, whether long or short, was only the opening chapter. As the soul settles into barzakh and the truth of what lies ahead becomes clearer, a unique stage begins. It is a time when the soul can no longer act, but is not completely detached from the world it just left. The early period carries a different weight, not because time is counted there the way we count days, but because this is when the soul begins to stabilize in its new reality, and when the impact of the living becomes most apparent. In this stage, the soul understands more clearly than ever that every door of personal action has closed. No prayer can be spoken by its own tongue. No charity can be given by its own hand. No missed opportunity can be reclaimed. Now the soul lives on what it already did, and on what is sent to it from the world of the living. And here, a subtle but powerful form of Allah's mercy becomes visible. Sincere prayers from loved ones do not vanish into the air. Charity given with a pure intention is not forgotten. Quran recited with the hope of gifting its reward does not stop at the lips of the reader. All of it is recorded, carried forward, and felt by the soul in a way that fits the world it now inhabits. It is not just a ritual to comfort the living. It is real support for the one who has passed. And in receiving that support, the soul begins to recognize the value of bonds it may have neglected while alive. A prayer from a child taught to know Allah. A good deed done by someone who learned from you. A kindness that keeps growing because you planted its seed years ago. These now become light in a stage where the soul can no longer create light for itself. But not every soul receives these gifts. For some, the waiting in barzakh happens in a heavy silence. Not because Allah lacks mercy, but because their life built no stream of goodness that continues after them. When no one remembers their name in prayer, when no ongoing good flows from their legacy, the soul understands this silence is not random. It is the result of a life closed in on itself. In those early moments, the soul understands what it truly meant to prepare for death while alive. Not with obsession or panic, but with planting. Planting deeds that keep benefiting others. Planting knowledge that continues to be used. Planting faith in your children so that one day, when you can no longer raise your hands to ask, someone else can raise theirs for you. Those three paths, ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, and a child who prays, stop being abstract ideas. They become living bridges between two worlds. Each gift that arrives is a reminder that the soul is not forgotten, and for a soul waiting, that matters more than anything it ever owned on earth. This stage also becomes a mirror for the living. It forces the breathing heart to ask hard questions. If today were my last day, who would pray for me? Who would remember me through action, not just tears? What am I leaving behind besides fragile memories? Or am I living a life that once it ends leaves nothing that continues to ripple outward? The first 40 days are not a superstitious number. They are a deep reminder of a temporary closeness between two worlds, a time when mercy still flows, and the living can still do something meaningful for the one who has passed. But it is also a warning that this window will pass. And when it does, what remains for the soul is only what was prepared before. No one in barzakh wishes to come back to earn more money or status. What the soul longs for is a whispered prayer, a good deed continued, a meaningful trace that proves their life did not pass with no purpose. And that longing is a silent message to the living. Prepare while you still can. Because once the soul enters this waiting stage, there is no more planting seeds, only harvesting what was planted. That is why this is not just the story of those who died. It is a living lesson for those still here. A lesson reminding us that how we live today is how we will be remembered and how we will be supported when tomorrow no longer belongs to us. The greatest lesson is not in learning more information about the afterlife, but in this question: how is that knowledge changing the way I live today? If remembering the grave makes us more careful with our words, gentler with people, more honest with faith, and less attached to what fades, then that remembrance has done its job. Living this does not require heroic acts. It starts with small, consistent choices, praying when you could delay, apologizing when ego wants silence, giving when your heart hesitates, and planting knowledge, faith, and kindness in others when no one asked you to. Every choice like that is a quiet brick in the home we are building for the world ahead. And every time you choose to remember Allah in ordinary life, you are preparing for the moment when nothing else will be left to cling to. If this content touched something deep inside you, do not treat it as a passing emotion. Take it as an invitation to live more awake. We invite you to join the Prophetic History Explained community so we can keep learning together about the soul's journey, the meaning of life, lessons from the Quran, prophetic history, barzakh, akhirah, and the knowledge that helps us live with more depth in the world we are in now. And if you want to support the channel so we can keep bringing honest, deep, awakening content like this, subscribe to Prophetic History Explained. Your presence is not just a number. It is a sign that there are still hearts willing to listen, reflect, and live differently before it is too late.